Right, Wilbon, how are you feeling right now about the Bears and what you had to watch in their game against San Francisco?
Well, that game was no surprise. I've been in San Francisco in the previous stadium, Candlestick, of course, when the good Bears teams, and Tommy was probably on at least one of them, good Bears teams got just blown to smithereens by the 49ers. And it's a place where I don't know that I've ever even seen the Bears win a game there in all the years I've been covering pro football. And humiliating losses. I think it was a 48-0. I saw Mike Ditka teams get trashed there. So a new coach, first time out, Niners coming off a 3-game losing streak with one of the best coaches in the league. That was a setup. That was a total setup for a beatdown. And that's what it was, and they were merciful to only do it for a half. So you can't be feeling good about it. No. There's no way to do that. None. And the question is, with a full week of hopefully no drama and preparation, what does it mean? What are they going to look like?
All I know,
and on Monday night, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a hard assignment.
All I know is that the stark differences between these two organizations, the San Francisco 49ers and Chicago Bears, were on full display in Santa Clara on Sunday, and it was quite depressing. I'm not going to lie. I did expect this team to come out and play with a little more purpose, a little bit more pride, and they got out-coached, they got out-schemed, they got out-executed, they got outworked. And it wasn't what I was expecting. And this one, I mean, at this point, we should all be numb to a lot of the nonsense, but this one kind of stuck with me a little bit too much.
Tommy, I can understand that. I was expecting exactly what happened for the reasons I told you. Yeah. It's just something about it. When we can look up scores later, and there've been trash scores. I mean, I think there was a 48. It couldn't have been 48-0 because that'd be like the worst loss in history. But I think they've had losses to Bill Walsh, to Seifert. Harbaugh. They've had beat down losses out there.
But
and there was no reason for me to think this was going to be any different.
But this team demanded that they change coaches. They got what they wanted. The boogeymen were out of the building, and you come out with that effort, making mistakes, not showing a fire in your belly.
And the 49ers weren't exactly like a juggernaut coming into the game.
The 49ers had been beaten soundly by the Packers and then by the Bills, and they were feeling they were trying to grasp into whatever lasting hope they had with regard to postseason play, and that was inexcusable. I'm sorry.
The 49ers were a better prescription.
Team. Yeah.
The Bears were just what the Niners were.
I'm tired of being everybody's elixir.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, this one was easy. Now, to me, of more consequences, Minnesota. Just played them even. You played them even. You played an overtime game you should have won. So what do you got now? What do you got for you've had a drama-free week, and you're coming off. Your circumstance is sort of like the 49ers. Except you've lost. What is it now? How many straight is it? 7?
7, yeah.
I mean, the Niners had lost 3 straight, and they were just as desperate and as purposeful as you could be. So now, what are the Bears going to do? Division opponent. You just saw them. You were even with them a couple of weeks ago. What do you got? To me, this is a more defining, telling, game and week for this team and what it is that they should think of each other.
And Michael, of even bigger consequence than that is the coaching search, and something that Waddle and I have really been focusing on the last 2 days is Ryan Poles' role in this. He's got 1 year left on his deal, and based on there have been worse general managers than him, but do you give him a contract extension and allow him to pick another new coach, or do you allow a new coach and general manager sync up with the new president and Kevin Warren and thank Ryan for his work?
Wow. I was not thinking of looking for a new general manager, given that this one is so deep into this build. I wasn't thinking that, Silvy. I got to tell you, that never crossed my mind. I think if you it depends on what George and Kevin think of Ryan Poles, right? I mean, do they see Ryan Poles as the answer, at least for the next 5 years? If they do, he's got to be the one who chooses the coach, not a new GM. You bring a new GM in, and you got a whole. To me, you got a whole Pandora's box.
That's the thing, because you either have to commit to Ryan for the long term then with the new coach and put him on the same timeline with Caleb, or if you don't, you have to then align a new coach with the general manager and the president and the court. There has to be a long-term alignment here. And that's what I'm fearful of. Because of the 1 year left and the offensive line hasn't been built, there have been missteps here with what he put Caleb through, the misstep with Eberflus. I have lost confidence in Ryan, and I'm wondering.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But I get it. But I think Poles has done some good things as well. I think that they might be what some coaches would consider a little backward because of the offensive line not being in place when you put these other things in place. But again, I think he's put some good pieces in place, and there have been some good draft pieces, middle and lower rounds. I'm not ready to give up on Poles yet, but Silvy, I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to sit here and say you're crazy, but thinking that way, I would like the long-term commitment to come organically and not just because people are paired like on some dating app. I don't want that.
Right.
So I don't know what that means. I mean, there are other teams that we've covered. Did Bill Polian and Marv Levy, did they arrive at the same time in Buffalo? I don't know. I know that, John McVay and Bill Walsh, they arrived at the same time. I don't think so. I don't think that I think that's sort of contrived. And I think it happens a lot now. It's what people prefer to do. But I don't really care about that. Bobby Beathard and Joe Gibbs. So now I'm talking about people who won or been in a million Super Bowls.
What if you
and
can't?
Do I want that?
Michael? What if you can't get one of the coaches that you want? Say you want Vrabel. I'm just using a name. I'm not saying this guy for sure. But just let's say the Bears' top two choices that they love are Vrabel and Ben Johnson, and both of those guys, because they're so in demand, want to bring their own personnel guys with them. What do you do?
Well, you bring your own personnel guys who work under the GM. I'm not giving anybody GM duties with that ship has sailed. That's been a failure.
Well, not at 49er land where we were just talking about it. Has worked with John Lynch and with what? No, Lynch is the GM and the coach is the coach. Shanahan's the coach. No, Shanahan hired Lynch. He brought Lynch with him.
He may have somehow given his blessing, but anybody who knows Lynch knows he's not somebody's bobo and answering to Kyle Shanahan. I don't believe that at all. And we've seen what happened with Mike Holmgren in Seattle. It doesn't work, and I'm not doing it. I don't care who else does it. It doesn't work.
It's a non-starter for you.
Not even considering it. So, no, Ben Johnson at 38 years old and not bringing his own GM in. No, not happening. So it hasn't worked, and it doesn't work. And so I'm not saying you need to be Jerry Krause and think you have say over everything in the organization and everybody answers to you. I'm not saying that. But you can have your own personnel people. People will point out, it worked for Greg Popovich. Pop will be the first to point out to you, he doesn't scout. He doesn't do the things that he that are turned over to a general manager. That's to RC. It's just not the case. So, no, that's not happening.
Because Harbaugh just did it.
Harbaugh did it, yeah. Harbaugh, when Jim Harbaugh took the job with the Chargers, he actually plucked someone off of his brother's front office, and he picked his own.
Who hired Jim in San Diego?
The owner.
The owner did.
Spanos
did it himself. No GM involved.
No, he brought the GM with him.
Well, I tell you what, when John Harbaugh when Jim wins, then maybe I can reassess. I'm not reassessing that.
All I know now
is
Jim
Harbaugh is also a guy. I'm not giving Vrabel or Ben Johnson that. They don't have Jim Harbaugh's resume. I'm not giving them that.
What would you say to somebody that says, Mike, well, however the Bears have done it over the last several decades hasn't worked? So
It hasn't.
So I mean that
doesn't mean giving somebody full control is going to work. We've seen that fail in any number of places, including some really bright people.
You hang with some pretty important folks in the NFL universe. How do they perceive from more than an arm's length distance? How do they perceive our franchise and this actual coach opening?
They perceive the franchise as sort of one of missed opportunities since 2010, and that's like hard to argue with. It's not the longest period of time. It's not 108 years. It's 14 years. 14's enough. That team got to one Super Bowl 4 years earlier. Should have gotten to another one in 10-11. That would have been a second Super Bowl for Lovey. And so since then, they've screwed it up. They made 4 stupid coach hires. Well, 3 stupid ones. 3 really stupid ones. 3 that you could know you shouldn't be making that hire. And so, but they don't view it. They don't view the Bears as sort of a benign franchise they wish is better, because the fan base is so large and so passionate and so well heeled that they travel anywhere and go anywhere at the drop of a dime. So the league really wants all this to work for the Bears and the people around the football industry.
They're a good
so there's
neighbor. They're a good neighbor, but nobody's threatened by them.
There's no animus.
Right.
There's none of that. So we shouldn't overstate, sort of the Bears' plight. The Bears' plight is they've made dumb coaching hires 3 times, and the Eberflus one, keeping him, seems to have been the wrong move. So you could count it as 4 if you want. So they've gotten that wrong. It's flat out wrong. And different people have gotten it wrong. So the question now is, again, are you going to give Poles that opportunity, and are you going to trust him to get it right? And Silvy, I hear you when you say you've lost confidence in him a little bit. I get it. I'm not brimming with confidence. I'm not ready to throw him out and say bring in a new GM, because who's that?
All I know
you're
is
right. I'm scared crapless of that too. Like I am scarred, and I don't know what the right answer is.
This franchise hasn't had 3 consecutive winning seasons since the 80s. Think about that.
Yeah.
I'm just talking like
9-7, 9-7,
9-7, 9-7. I'm not talking 13-3, 13-3, 13-3. They have not had 3 consecutives. I heard Carmen DeFalco say this the other day. They haven't had 3 consecutive winning seasons since the 80s. Like
it's a long time. It's a long. I mean, the failures with the coaches, it dates back now to 2011. It's 13 years of failing to see what the right thing to do is with the coaching staff. Mm-hmm. And, how many times do I have to talk about what should have been done with Lovie Smith? And they've got it wrong every time.
Well,
and hiring Trestman just reaches. I don't know if it's because they didn't want to spend what it takes. How desperately do you want to win? How badly do you want to win?
You should never. Mike, when we're talking about a $5 billion entity, the concept, the question, how much do you want to spend on the coach, shouldn't even be asked, because it's pennies on a dollar.
It should. That's right. But you're talking about a family that made its money in football, not in something else.
Totally understand. Right.
And so that changes the equation somewhat. And the franchise that has done it right. We can point to the Bulls, and they did certain things right after Michael, but basically the gift from heaven was Michael Jordan, and then you can shortcut some other areas and you can make it work anyway. The franchise that did it right was the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks got it right. They, in terms of drafting, spending, they couldn't keep the team together because of the stupid NHL rules that prohibited, that put a hard cap in place and kept you from even creatively keeping a team. It just wasn't allowable. But, until they can get the coach right, that's what they got to get right. I'm not distracted by all these other issues. I'm not really distracted. If Ryan Poles doesn't know he's got to spend 4 or 5 draft picks on offensive lineman, not to mention money, then you can fire him. You can fire him the day after the draft if he doesn't realize that. But I'm not there yet. And I don't know that that going to get a new GM. What makes you think if you can't get the coach right, you got to get the GM right?
Well, a good GM may be able to get the coach right. That's the issue,
but how
too.
do you get the right GM?
I don't know. Like that's the thing. They haven't gotten that right either. That's the whole thing.
Well, it's been a while.
Well, listen. Ryan Poles may be or may have been the right GM, but if you don't allow him to change the coach at the start of this year and hire who he wants, then really.
Well, if we accept that, I'm not ready to accept that as fact.
I'm just saying, here's one of two things is true, Mike. Either he wanted to change coach and wasn't allowed by the owners, which is shame on the owners, or he didn't want to change coaches when we all knew that the wrong thing to do was to stick with Matt Eberflus, knowing you were drafting Caleb Williams.
And then shame on Ryan.
And then shame on him on that front. So either way, shame on somebody.
Okay, I'll grant you that.
Okay.
And
I'm not yelling at you. This team is just driving me crazy.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. But I can point out to you any number of GMs who are praised at one point or another who made failed bad coaching hires.
Sure.
Really quick,
so
Mike.
I give Ryan Poles 1. He just had it.
Before we let you go, is Bill Belichick going to be a successful college coach?
I think he can be. I don't know how long it takes to put in place what Belichick does. Does it take 2 or 3 years as he moves into his mid-70s? Does it take, how long does it take to put that in place? I think if he can do that, he'll be spectacular. But what I don't know is how long that takes. And North Carolina has enough money, even though it's a state school, they have enough money, and I'm talking about the school and the alums, to go out and get the GM of football that you need, the head of NIL, the head of transfer portal. All these things have to be put in place now. They got to be put in place if you're North Carolina or Northwestern. All of that has to be done. So can you do that in support of Bill Belichick? Speaking of coaches not doing everything, the college game is now the great example of why you can't have one person trying to do multiple things. It doesn't work, and nobody's going to do it. And Bill Belichick knows he can't do it. He doesn't want to sit across the table from the parents of an 18-year-old and an agent asking him how much money he's going to get to come and be the running back. He don't want that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that has to be answered at any college program before you can tell me how successful somebody's going to be.
Yeah. Are you going to be in town for DePaul in Northwestern?
Yes.
I will be there.
I'm going to be in town that Friday, Saturday. I'm looking forward to that. We just wished a happy 64th birthday to Mark Aguirre.
Oh, nice.
On PTI. And I bet you Mark will be there when holidays. He's been at the Northwestern DePaul game before. I've got a chance to chat with him. And Mark, I know, like me, when you get old and you've been away, you want to spend some more time at home. And I hope Mark is there. I hope he's able to be there. That would be fun. And
I'll be there with the family. Wilbon, I'll be there with the family. So we'll catch up there.
Good. I'll see. We need a win. DePaul 7-1.
They're good.
They haven't really beat anybody. I think we both beat Eastern Illinois by some smallish margin. I got to check that to make certain I'm accurate. But I'm looking forward to that Saturday afternoon game sandwich between trips to Christmas shopping.
Yep, for sure. All right, Michael, great stuff.